In the shadowed corners of medieval Europe, behind locked doors and within secret chambers, alchemists toiled endlessly over bubbling cauldrons and smoking crucibles. These weren't mad scientists or delusional mystics. They were the cutting-edge researchers of their time, pursuing what they believed to be humanity's greatest achievement, the Philosopher's Stone. This mythical substance would supposedly grant eternal life and transform base metals into pure gold. But in their fervent quest for immortality and wealth, these medieval practitioners were unknowingly writing the recipe for one of history's most transformative and destructive inventions. The alchemists worked with meticulous precision, documenting every experiment in cryptic manuscripts written in obscure symbols and coded language. Among their countless trials with mercury, lead, and exotic minerals, 3 humble substances kept appearing in their notes: saltpeter, a white crystalline mineral they scraped from cave walls and stable floors; charcoal, the blackened remains of burned wood; and sulfur, a yellow crystalline element that burned with an acrid smell. These weren't exotic or expensive materials. They were common, almost mundane. Yet when combined in specific proportions, something extraordinary happened. Imagine the scene: a late autumn evening in 13th century Europe. An elderly alchemist, perhaps a Franciscan friar or a court physician, carefully grinds his ingredients in a bronze mortar. He's following a procedure he believes will advance his work toward creating the elixir of life. The 3 powders mix into a uniform black substance. Then, as he adds heat or perhaps an errant spark falls from a nearby candle, boom! A flash of fire, a deafening crack, smoke billowing to the ceiling. Papers scatter, glass shatters. The alchemist stumbles backward, ears ringing, heart pounding. He's terrified, confused, but most importantly, he's just witnessed the birth of gunpowder. The manuscript evidence is extraordinary when you know what to look for. Buried in texts like the Book of Fires, attributed to Marcus Graecus, or in the works of medieval European scholars who had access to Arabic and Chinese sources, we find the formulas. They didn't call it gunpowder, of course. They referred to it as flying fire, Greek fire, or simply noted it as a failed transmutation experiment that produced violent results. The ratios are there: roughly 75% saltpeter, 15% charcoal, and 10% sulfur. That's gunpowder. That's the same basic formula that would eventually propel bullets, explode bombs, and change warfare forever. The irony is breathtaking. Alchemists were seeking transformation, and they found it, just not the transformation they intended. While they failed to discover the Philosopher's Stone or create gold from lead, they had discovered something infinitely more powerful in its ability to transform civilization. From the cannons that breached Constantinople's walls in 1453, to the muskets that decided the fate of empires, to the modern military explosives that shape geopolitics today, it all traces back to those medieval laboratories. The chemical reaction they documented, a rapid oxidation process where saltpeter provides oxygen while charcoal and sulfur provide fuel, is fundamentally unchanged in modern gunpowder. But here's what makes this story even more fascinating. The alchemists didn't understand what they had created. They lacked the chemical knowledge to comprehend the oxidation reactions, the rapid gas expansion, or the energy release. To them, it was simply another mysterious property of matter, perhaps a sign they were getting closer to unlocking nature's deepest secrets. Some believed the explosive properties were caused by elemental spirits trapped in the materials. Others thought it was evidence of sulfur's connection to hellfire and demonic forces. They documented the how with remarkable precision, but they completely misunderstood the why. The process of creating gunpowder, as documented in these medieval texts, is surprisingly straightforward. The alchemists would first purify their saltpeter through repeated crystallization, ensuring maximum potency. They'd create their charcoal through controlled burning of willow or other woods, grinding it to a fine powder. The sulfur would be purified through sublimation. Then came the critical step, the careful mixing and grinding of all 3 components together. This process, called incorporation, had to be done with extraordinary care. Too much friction or heat during grinding could cause premature ignition. The alchemists learned this lesson the hard way, and many paid with their lives. The transmission of this knowledge is itself a remarkable story. Chinese alchemists had discovered gunpowder centuries earlier, around the 9th century, also while seeking elixirs of immortality. Their knowledge traveled along the Silk Road, through Islamic scholars who refined the formulas and added their own observations. By the 13th century, European alchemists were conducting their own experiments, sometimes aware they were working with Eastern formulas, sometimes believing they had made independent discoveries. Roger Bacon, the famous English philosopher and Franciscan friar, wrote coded instructions for gunpowder in his 1267 work Opus Majus, deliberately obscuring the formula to prevent its misuse, even though he himself didn't fully grasp its military potential. The medieval alchemists' legacy is written in smoke and thunder. Their careful documentation, preserved in manuscripts now held in museums and libraries across Europe, provides us with an unexpected window into the birth of the modern world. These weren't just mystical dreamers or proto-scientists fumbling in the dark. They were systematic experimenters who recorded their observations with remarkable precision, even when they didn't understand the underlying principles. Their failure to create gold inadvertently created something that would prove far more valuable and far more dangerous: the means to project force across distance, to breach walls thought impregnable, to fundamentally alter the balance of power between individuals, armies, and nations. Today, when we analyze these ancient texts with modern chemical knowledge, we can see exactly what was happening in those medieval laboratories. Every explosion, every flash of fire, every violent reaction was a piece of the puzzle being documented for posterity. The alchemists gave us the recipe. History provided the consequences. And it all began with 3 simple ingredients and a search for something entirely different. A perfect example of how the pursuit of one dream can accidentally unlock another, changing everything in the process.